Today we're going to do a review of the Stanford Achievement Test Series 10th edition, which we have purchased from Homeschool Testing Services. So let's get to it. Now, you spend a great deal of time and energy on the education of your child or your children, and the natural part of teaching your children is wondering, how are my children doing at retaining all this information? Well, in our state, testing is not a requirement for homeschooling families, but we still wanted some way to gauge our children's progress. So we did some research, and we thought about doing a standardized test would be the best way for us to do this. So now we're going to review through some of the basic content and formatting of the Stanford Achievement Test 10th edition. So if you're considering standardized testing for your child, hopefully this will help you decide if this test is a good fit for you and your family. All right, now, before we begin, you should know this test has 3 formats. First, there's the at-home test kit, which we will be reviewing with you today. Next, there's the online testing option. And finally, an on-site testing option. Now, if you go with online testing, you're going to have to register for a time to go out and take the test. It'll actually be done alongside a conference call with a proctor that will guide your child through the exam as if they were there in person. And since there's a lot of technology being used for this online option, they actually require you to take a practice test to test out the test, for lack of a better way to put it. Now, if you choose to go with on-site testing, as you would imagine, that would have required you to arrive at a location at a particular time and place for a proctor to guide you through the physical test. But it's 2020. And they're presently not conducting any on-site tests right now due to COVID-19. So you're going to need to check the website regularly for updates as to when these may become available again. So now, let's dig into this home test kit. So first, we have the package here we received from the Homeschool Testing Services, and let me show you what came with it. Now, we bought this test for 2 of our kids. One is generally in the 2nd grade and the other's in the 4th. And the website will help you make sure you select the correct test for your child. So let me open this up so we can start reviewing through this. Here we go. All right, so first we have this blue instructions manual. What this will be covering is what you can expect in the forms that are inside. Also, it notes that you have up to 2 weeks to take and administer this test and then mail it to Homeschool Testing Services. It also includes other information. Naturally, you're going to need a number 2 pencil for the Scantrons. And if there's anything missing, to contact them right away. Also, it's important to note that it takes about a week and a half for results to get back to you once you mail these tests to them. So that way you know there is going to be a bit of a lag after you send this to them. All right, let's see what is next. For our 4th grader, it actually comes with a typical Scantron sheet, what you would normally expect from a standardized test. I'd like to make sure you notice that there is this ID scan code on the sheet. If this is part of your Scantron, you don't need to worry about filling out any of the other identifying information. But if it does not include this, you do need to make sure this gets filled in properly with a number 2 pencil. All right, let's see what else we have. Naturally, since your kids are going to be taking a test that needs to be received again, it actually comes, which is kind of handy, it comes with the priority mail envelope. And it also includes a prepaid postage as well to send this back to them. So that's actually pretty handy, so I don't need to worry about getting this information, going to the post office, getting the envelope. They've taken care of all that for you. So all you have to do is put the test in, slap on the sticker, make sure everything's in the envelope, and send it back to them. All right, now we have our instruction booklets. Let me flip these around here. All right, so we have booklets for the proctor. So if you're going to be proctoring the exam, you will need the proctor booklet. And then we also have the multiple choice test booklet. So we have the primary 1 and 2 and the intermediate 1 books. So that is what we needed for our children. And now you know exactly what is contained within this package. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dig into these booklets. Now, first, what I'd like to do is I want to look at the administration booklets, what you use as a proctor. Now, my wife and I, we actually plan on proctoring this exam for our children ourselves, but it's important to note that there are some requirements you need to be aware of if you plan on proctoring. It's important to note that if you do not have a 4-year degree, the Stanford Achievement Test states that you can still administer the test, but you might have a harder time using the results of this test to apply for private or public schools. So please just be sensitive to that information, that is something that could create difficulty if you do not have a 4-year degree. So let's start with these books now. All right, so we're looking at forms A and D with the primary book. This is the one that's going to be used for my second grader. And as you can see, we start with a table of contents. And you can actually see what topics this will be covering. We have reading, mathematics, language, language form D, spelling, listening, science, environment, and social sciences. Now, I do know something we're going to see here in this sec, that even though language form D is included in this booklet, for the particular age group we're using for, it's not going to be required for us to take that. And they do note that inside the page. So I just want to show you a couple things here. Also, as a helpful guide, it does include a general idea of suggested preparation time prior to each section, and an idea of how long it might take to do each section. Now, this test is actually not timed. The main reason why they give you this guide is to help you figure out how to fit this into your schedule. Because we all know we all have busy days and lots of things going on, and this will help you figure out the calendar and date you want to use that. All right, the next thing I want to show you is the general format of this book and how it looks. As you can see, if you're going to be proctoring this exam, it actually tells you specifically verbatim what you need to say for this exam. So it's just like if you've ever had to take standardized testing, and it's going to sound just as exciting as it always does. This test will provide useful information about what you have learned. You know, so just like what we're used to hearing, and it will help walk you through and walk your child through how to conduct this exam. Next, I want to take a look at the back sheet here. And it's important to note that as you're going through this, you're going to have to make sure that before you mail in any Scantrons or any booklets with Scantrons in them, that everything gets filled out cleanly and carefully. So this is just a little reminder in the very back of the book to remind you of those markings and to check that before you send it in, just to make sure all the scoring is very accurate. All right, and that was the primary one for our second grader. Now here's the proctoring guide for our fourth grader. For the most part, everything is going to be the same. So I feel like we don't need to go through this quite as detailed as the first one, since it all repeats itself. All right, and now the exciting part. We get to take a peek at the exam itself, the multiple test booklets. All right, so first I'm going to start off with the primary booklet, the one for my second grader, and she actually has 2 booklets to cover all the information that she's going to be tested on. And so with the primary booklets, I want you to notice that these books are brand new. They're very white, very clean, very clear. The reason for that is because for the younger ages, they actually don't have Scantrons. the book itself is the Scantron. And I just want to notice, look at how clean this looks. I very much appreciate that the font is large. It's in bright colors. And you'll notice that it actually helps the child know how far they need to go. Just as the proctor is going to tell them how far they need to go, it also shows here in the booklet that they can continue on to go along with that. And it also points out when they need to stop. So it's right here in bright red where they need to stop. So, and it looks like it goes through each vocab and each topic very well. Reading comprehension, listening skills, mathematics, all that wonderful stuff. All right, so that is the primary. Again, these are brand new, and you'll want to double check to make sure everything gets filled in properly before you send that back in. All right, and now we're going to do the intermediate booklet. Now, you can probably see now the intermediate booklet is not quite so shiny, not quite so nice, and that's all right. The reason for that is since they use Scantrons, they end up recycling a lot of their booklets. So you want to make sure you send these booklets back to them with all the other testing materials so they can continue to reuse this. But just like in the first booklet, as I said, large colorful print, telling them where to go, clear directions along the top, and markings for when they need to go and when they need to stop. So what we're going to be doing is now that we have gone through and just taken a quick overview of what came in this packet, we're actually going to have our kids take these exams and we'll tell you how it goes. And once those results come in, we'll share with you kind of what to expect with those results. All right, so let's get testing. All right, so the test came in, and this is what we got via email. We had done the test at home as we had shown you, and eventually what had happened after a few weeks, the results came in, and we reviewed them for ourselves. And this was very helpful to us just to gauge how we are doing with the kids, how the kids are doing, and if there's anything we need to adjust in terms of curriculum or how we're teaching things. So we're going to go through this, and I'm going to explain kind of some of the scores very briefly, and I'll tell you how my family, how we felt this was helpful or maybe not helpful, and I hope that that is, well, helpful to you too. So we'll go and we'll get started. So as you can see, it has your child's information, their name, the name of the test that you took, and the general grade range of it. And along the left side, we have the main categories of testing: total reading, word study skills, vocabulary, etc., etc. And further below on this page, and actually into a second page, it goes into even more detail in giving the individual categories, subcategories within each of these forms. So real quick, first we'll look at the score here. Here we have RS, that it's marked right here. RS actually stands for the raw score. So the overall raw score of what they got right in the test. So as you can see, so these are what they did well. Max points is the total possibility. So for instance, in total reading, we have a raw score of 90 and a max points of 100. All right, then SS, this stands actually for the scaled points. So this is actually a weighted score. Now, the base of this weight is actually based on the original group of kids that they used to take the test. So essentially what is happening then is your student is being compared to this original group of students. And I will say, after I learned more about this particular score, if you only take the test once, this score will not be very helpful to you at all. The only way this score is very helpful is if your students take this same style test multiple times, so that way you can compare the scores and you can graph to see if it is trending upwards, so positive correlation. And it only works with the same test. You can't really cross test at all. So to get value out of SS, you need to take multiple tests, and it needs to be the same one. All right, and these next two categories, we have the percentile and the ST9. ST9 stands for the Stay 9. And what these are is these are gauges compared to an overall average score. So essentially, if you're above 50 on the PR, that's doing around average or better. Same thing with the Stay 9. Stay 9, 1 to 3 is below average, 4 to 6 is average, 7 to 9 is above average. And we can actually see that if you compare the PR and the ST9, that appears to be true. So 75 would be considered an average number on PR. 6 is an average performance on the Stay 9. Now, about the Stay 9, what the Stay 9 is this is what is gauged as a national norm number. And the data is a little bit old. It's based on a national number from 2007. But for the most part, some of this information changes over the years in the curriculum. Some of it does not. So I still believe that it's still a helpful measuring tool to use just to gauge how your kid's doing with the information. And so I kind of already explained a little bit about what is average, what is below average, what is above average. Next, we have the GE. We have GE right here. That is the grade equivalent. So what a grade equivalent essentially is that if someone in this particular grade, the number given, so we have a 4.6, that means that someone that was a little bit past 4th grade would have answered as well on these same level difficulty questions. So someone in this grade would answer similarly if given the test. Now, we did learn that you have to be a little bit careful when measuring this. In general, it's not recommended that you use this number solely as a way of pushing your kids to move up that grade equivalent as high as possible, because you really run the danger of education gaps if you try to push kids too quickly. So that means making sure you take the time for your child to master a certain area of knowledge before you move on to the next grade level. So grade equivalent is very good at measuring where your child is right now and how well they're performing against kids at different grade points. Just be careful not to let that be the driving force behind all of your curriculum decisions. All right, next we have the overall performance. So we have proficient, basic, and advanced here. So just again, it's just another measure of average, below average, above. Then we have the Lexile score. Okay, so Lexile is primarily, it's a reading score. It measures your child's reading comprehension in general. Now, they actually, with this student profile, we don't go into, we don't see a lot of details given with this score. You have to do a little additional research to kind of gain the value of it. So if you want to learn more about Lexile scores, you need to go to lexile.com, spelled the same way as given on this page, lexile.com. And you can actually find grade level charts there. And right now we'll post one on the screen for you to kind of see what they look like, to help you gauge the reading material that your kid is able to consume, and what kind of grade, what type of reading material will even challenge your kids. So Lexile can actually be a very helpful number, but as I said, you do have to do a teeny bit more legwork to really get the value of it. And then last but not least, we have the raw score again, but this time with a visual graph to help you see just where that score rests in the chart. So overall, when my wife and I reviewed through these numbers, we thought this was actually a very helpful tool. It does give us some helpful information to kind of see where our children are excelling, where our children could probably use a little bit of practice. And when we start making curriculum decisions, or we make a decision in terms of how we want to tweak perhaps curriculum so it matches our child's learning style, that this will be able to maximize our learning time together. Overall, if I were to scale this on a scale of 1 to 5, I'd give it a strong 4. The only reasons why I would knock it a little bit is just I found that the scaled point value is not necessarily the most helpful thing if unless you're taking it multiple times. Some of this information is a little bit repetitive. You know, if we have stay 9, is it necessary that we also have the percentile as well? But overall, this was very, very useful. So we hope that this is a help to you and your families. And feel free to check out some of our other content. And I would encourage you, if you would like to gain some measure of education in terms of how your kids are doing, this is a very good tool to use for that. So hope you all are doing well, and let's continue to learn together with Homeschool Arcade. So we really have a lot of great information coming this way. And if you're interested in this topic or any of our other videos, please click subscribe and the bell so you can be notified as videos are coming out. And let's get to it.